Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about meeting the residents' needs as far as the residents' personal living space. So, in this chapter, we're going to discuss the different actions and activities that respect the residents' control of their personal living space, talk about residents' personal items, talk about how to knock before entering, and how to provide privacy during personal care. You need to remember that this is the resident's home. They may not live in a traditional house anymore, but at the facility, this is their home. This is where they're going to be. So keep in mind that you work in their home. They do not live where you work. They technically do, but that's not the frame of mind that we need to keep. So, your residents can bring their own furniture, their wall decorations, and different items to personalize their living space. So, think about some of the things that you would want to bring if you were in a nursing home. All the things that you hold near and dear to your heart, all of the personal possessions that you have. Wouldn't you want those respected? I think you definitely would. So, just kind of keep that in mind as we're talking about this. So, one of the things we can do is definitely knock before entering a resident's room. So when you come into the resident's door, you can knock, announce yourself, nursing, let them know who you are, ask if it's okay to come in, and let them know what you're there to do. So as you enter the room, if you are needing to provide personal care, then you need to close the door, close the curtain if they have a roommate, and also close the blinds and the curtains to the outside because you don't want somebody walking by and seeing the personal care that you're giving. So, the bed in the resident's living space is typically provided by the facility, but not necessarily. There are many nursing homes now that are allowing residents to bring their own beds to provide an additional measure of comfort for them. Many assisted livings and home pluses also do not provide beds to the residents, so they do have to bring their own. So, the bed that is provided by the facility can be raised or in the flat position. There are separate electronic controls or cranks for raising the headrest and knees. And when we do our skills labs, then you guys will see the different beds that are available in the facilities. The high position can be used for staff safety while providing resident care. This kind of ties in with the mobility chapter that you just finished, and you watched that safe transfers and repositioning video where you saw that the two nurse assistants in the video were pretty tall and the bed was fairly short, and so was the resident that they were taking care of. So they needed to bring the bed up to their height to provide safe body mechanics for themselves. Just remember, the bed is not left in the high position. Generally, you need to lower the bed to its lowest height, and sometimes if you have a low bed, what's called a low bed, that will be all the way to the floor. So what you need to do in this case is check your care plan because your care plan will state whether or not the bed needs to be lowered to its lowest height. Some residents are able to safely have the bed kept at the height of their bedside table because if the bedside table will not go down to the height of the bed in its lowest position, the resident can't reach the things that they need. Can't reach their water, can't reach their remote control for their TV, can't reach, their hairbrush or whatever else is on their bedside table. So we want to be able to make sure that the resident can reach everything that they need. So the low positions are used for residents that are at risk from falling out of bed. What this is it may not prevent the resident from actually falling. They may still fall out of bed. However, this will prevent them from having a lot of injuries. Because think about, you know, what we typically think of as physics. How if you fall from a higher height, it's going to hurt more. Same thing with our residents. So if you roll out of bed from 6 inches off the floor versus 2 feet off the floor, there's a huge difference with that. And you may get a lot less injury if you are lower to the floor. Each bed that is provided by the facility will also have brakes. So these are used to prevent the bed from moving. Make sure when you are finished providing resident care that you have the brakes on. This is very, very important because some of our residents can turn themselves. Some of them can turn themselves with such force that if the brakes aren't on, the wheels will move and the resident may roll off of the bed. And they may roll in between the bed and the wall if the bed moves away from the wall. This is very, very much not a good thing. Normally, if the bed wheels are locked and the resident rolls towards the wall will stop them from falling out of bed. So the bed itself can be a special mattress that can be used to reduce pressure. Sometimes the mattresses will have air mattresses on top of them or some kind of overlay. So just be really careful with these because this is an additional piece of electrical equipment if they do have that air overlay. And whenever you're pushing the bed up, really be careful of the cords. A lot of people will like to push the bed all the way up where it's touching the wall. Well, there's still electrical cords behind there that are plugged in. The more that you push on those cords and the more that you strain on those cords can become frayed. And if you're not careful, that might shock the resident in the bed. So really pay attention to that. Leave a little bit of room or look at your cords and make sure that those are not trapped, especially if you use an additional mattress. So you're not only going to have the cord for the bed, but you'll have the cord for the mattress as well. So you need to pay attention to both of those. So people can also have assistive devices for mobility, such as a trapeze or a mobility rail. The trapeze is pictured there above the bed, kind of a little triangle thing. It kind of looks like in the old westerns when they use the triangle to call all the cowhands to dinner, but that is used for mobility. That's where people can reach up and use that to help them reposition themselves in bed. People can also have bed rails, also called side rails. These can only be placed in a certain number of situations. So if the resident's medical condition dictates, especially when it's used for a mobility purpose or when ordered by the physician. So what this means is we can no longer use bed rails to prevent people from falling out of bed. If they prevent people from falling out of bed when they would have naturally fallen out of bed or gotten out of bed, then it's considered a restraint. So we can't use bed rails for that purpose. However, if it's clearly documented that a resident needs the bed rails for mobility to help themselves either move around in bed and reposition themselves, or if they are needing help with the bed rail to get out of bed, that's okay. We can use bed rails for that reason. So there's one last piece of equipment that we'll talk about on this slide, and that's the overbed table. This can also, instead of having an overbed table, you might have a bedside stand or cabinet. These are really important to keep clean because, as you can see, some of our items for personal use that are on there, some people like to keep their urinals or the bedpan handy, and they'll keep them on the bedside table. Now, these are typically people that can't get up and out of bed, so guess where they're going to eat? They're going to eat in bed. And that bedside table, over the bed table, is going to be where you're going to place their bed meal tray. Sorry, can't talk today. That is where you're going to place their meal tray. So you want to make sure that that bedside table is very, very clean. If you have somebody that insists on leaving their urinal or the bedpan on their bedside table, then before mealtime, go around, make sure that you empty their urinal or their bedpan. Ask them if you can clean off the bedside table and just let them know, we're getting ready to bring your tray around. Can I clean this off for you so you'll have a clean surface for your meal? Most people are going to be okay with that. So some other things that you can have on an overbed table, you can have a wash basin. So if you're going to give a bed bath, you will use the over the bed table or the bedside stand for the wash basin. An emesis basin. This is the little kidney-shaped pans that people can use if they need to throw up. They don't look like they hold a lot, but they actually do. And then some also personal hygiene or grooming supplies. These can be things like their brushes, their combs. Some ladies like to keep their makeup on the top. People might like to keep, their hair products, things like that on the bedside table. So the bedside table or the overbed table has a lot of uses. So we need to keep it clean. So Think about your residents with temperature. Think about how thin sometimes the elderly person's skin gets. They're having a lot harder time regulating the temperature in their body, so a lot of people are cold all the time. This means they're going to want to keep their room a lot warmer than you would. So, please be respectful of people. Don't just change their temperature when you walk in the room to suit yourself just because you need to be in there. That's not okay for you to do. If the room is absolutely stifling and you need to provide care and you know you're going to be in there for a little bit, ask the resident, may I turn this down while I'm helping take care of you and turn it back up before I leave? A lot of people will be okay with that. Otherwise, just keep going, take care of your resident, and you can go have a cool off when you're done. So make sure that you keep that thermostat where the resident wants it, not for you. So ventilation. This kind of goes along with the temperature. A lot of residents may want to keep their door shut because the air in the hallway is a lot cooler than it is in their room, and they want to keep the heat in. Don't leave the resident's door open if they don't want it open, unless it's a safety issue. A lot of residents with this also will not want their windows open. So they may want to keep the heat in. They don't want to have, it might be a gorgeous day outside, but unless it's 90 degrees outside like it is in their room, they don't want you to open that window. So make sure to kind of keep that in mind. The ventilation is to the resident's preference, not yours. Lighting is a big thing. Now, lighting will also get into a safety issue. You will need to adjust the lighting for day and night safety, but also place lights to avoid glaring. So think about a lot of residents that might have eye problems, people that don't see as well, people that might bump into things a lot more easily. They may need a lot more light. Also, you don't want to keep all the lights on in the middle of the night when they're trying to sleep. That's really not helpful for them. So you will need to adjust the lighting for day and for night safety, especially if you have people that are independent to get up at night by themselves. So think about those people. They're usually doing fine. They're able to get up by themselves. They don't have any problem with the way they walk. But during the day, there's plenty of light going on. At night, we've got those lights turned down pretty low, if not off completely. So we want to make sure to keep enough light in the residence room to keep them safe at night, but not to keep them awake. So some of the things that we need to think about in the resident's personal space, the main one is safety. So when you come in the door, when you knock on that door, announce yourself, get your hand sanitizer. Don't forget your hand sanitizer or to wash your hands. As you're walking in that room, you want to make a habit to scan the resident's living space for any safety issues when you're going into the room and when you're leaving, because you might have missed something on the way in. So some safety things that you're going to want to look at. Make sure that there's no tripping hazards. Make sure there's no cords running across the room, that there's not a lot of clutter on the floor, that, everything's kind of where it needs to be. Some of your residents may have a lot more items in their room than others. However, we need to be respectful of those items and still keep them safe. So we've got to find a happy medium with that and find a balance. If you work with your resident or work with your resident's family, usually you can find a pretty good compromise. Maybe have some of those items kind of on the perimeter of the room rather than right out in the middle where the resident might trip over it. Some other safety things is the call signal. Keep the call light within the resident's reach at all times when they're in their room. You need to make sure that if they're in that bed, they've got their call light right where they need it. Make sure that they understand where it is. Some residents may forget, of course, but when you leave the room, just remind them, hold up the call light and say, here's your call light if you need it. Call me if you need anything, and show it to them. A lot of places will have you clip the call light to the resident's clothes or clip it to their pillow so that it's an easy reach whenever they need it. Keep in mind, when you have someone that has a deficit on one side, such as having a stroke, that causes paralysis or lack of movement on a certain side of their body, they're not going to be able to use a call light on that side of their body or a bedside table and reach all the things that they need. So, say you have a resident that's had a stroke and their left side doesn't function anymore. They can't move their arm, they can't lift their hand. So, do you think you want to put the call light on the left side of that resident? No, you want to put it on the right side where they're able to see it. Or at least put it on, they may be on the left side of their body, but where they can easily reach it with their right hand. Same with all the things on the bedside table. So the urinal, you want to keep this discreetly within reach of the male resident who uses it. So this may mean they may want it right on that bedside table. Some men like to hook it over a trash can. Some men just like to leave it on the floor next to the bed. Make sure that they know where it is. And whenever they use it, empty it and rinse it promptly after each use and put it back so they can use it again. It's very, very important to rinse it so that it doesn't get stinky and build up a lot of bacteria. So speaking of stinky, we want to make sure we keep the odors down. Remove the source of the odor. Wash out that urinal. If somebody just changed an incontinent resident and they put the brief in the trash and forgot to take it out, take it out. It's still your job to do that. And yes, you might be kind of upset with that person for not taking that resident's brief out in the trash. However, being angry at them really doesn't solve the problem of having the brief leave the room. So yes, you may want to ask them about it at later time, but take care of the source of the odor first. If you're still smelling something else, and you might have some residents with dementia or people that have hoarding tendencies, you may want to look for the source of that odor too. Some people will bring food back to their room. Some people will bring down fruit and they put it somewhere and think, oh, I'm going to have a snack for later. Well, then they forget. So some time goes by, maybe a few days. Their sense of smell isn't as great anymore. So that banana is going to get more rotten and nasty, and then it's going to start to stink. So please be a nose detective and find the source of the odor if you can. If you're not able to find it, get another person. Get rid of that odor as soon as you can. So again, make sure that you keep your items within resident reach, that bedside stand, and the stuff that they frequently use. Never, ever, ever move your residents' possessions without their permission. You always, always want to make sure that they have their permission. Because how would you feel if somebody walked into your house and started moving all of your furniture? They started putting your dishes in another cabinet. Or they started taking all of your toiletries out of where you keep them and hiding them in another spot. That wouldn't feel very good to you. So don't do it to your residents. So some residents may hoard some of their supplies in addition to the snacks. So just kind of try to find that and maybe try to limit the hoarding if you can. So you can also check with your more experienced staff, other CNAs, or your charge nurse if you're having trouble with that. Keep your bed in your lowest position. Use those rails only if they're ordered. And only raise the bed whenever you are providing resident care. Put it back to the care plan position or to the lowest position when you're finished. Bed rails, one of the reasons why we don't use them, like I said, they are considered a restraint now if they're not for mobility. These can actually trap residents in them. Or if a resident is determined enough and they have a bed rail, then they may decide to go over the bed rail and they're going to hurt themselves even more because they're going to fall from an additional height. So some different daily cleaning and maintenance. You may not be part of the maintenance team or part of the housekeeping staff. However, you can still keep your residence room neat and tidy. So keep the room free from clutter. Restock your care supplies. Because it's really frustrating to be that person coming in after somebody that hasn't restocked them. So you need to go take care of a resident. The resident may have had an unfortunately large bowel movement, diarrhea, incontinence episode. So you need several wipes to clean them up and gloves. You go to find gloves, you and the person you're working with, and there's one pair of gloves, and there's two people. So now you have to stop what you're doing and find gloves. Well, then you open the package of wipes. There's two wipes left. That's not going to cut it in this situation. So then you have to stop what you're doing and go find wipes. So it's very frustrating to be the person on the receiving end of that. So please don't set your fellow coworkers up for doing that either, or yourself. So you also want to follow your facility policy for your CNA's responsibility. Some places, especially assisted livings or home pluses, may have those universal workers. And the universal workers are going to do various activities, and some of them may even perform light housekeeping for the residents. So they might, cook the meals, give the showers, do all the rest of the stuff that the CNAs normally do, perform the ADLs with the residents. But they may additionally do the residents' laundry and do some light housekeeping throughout the day. So just kind of be aware of what your facility expects from you and follow the policies. So one of the things that you can do to help keep the resident comfortable in their space is bed making. So make sure when you're making a bed that our older skin becomes less resilient and less resistant to damage. Our skin is thinner and it has less elastic and it has less fat stores in it as well. So your elders or your residents may have less tissue padding over their bony prominences. So places like their coccyx or their tailbone, places like the back of their shoulders, on their elbows, on the heels, on the sides of the ankles, on their ears. That's a big place to kind of keep in mind too. So we want to make sure to keep wrinkles out of the bed to make sure that it's not, make sure primarily that we don't restrict any circulation to result in any pressure sores or decubitus ulcers. But we also want to keep people comfortable, of course. So whenever you have people that are immobile or that are bedfast, you want to make sure that you check them very frequently, generally every 2 hours. Always follow your facility policy and the residence care plan, but it's typically every 2 hours that you want to check somebody that is not able to get out of bed. So you may have to straighten out the linens, tighten the sheets, just kind of make sure everything is still under there okay, that you're not getting big wrinkles. And think about whenever you are repositioning a resident and they've had their head rolled up, they're going to slide down in bed. So that's going to cause wrinkles. So you'll need to get everything kind of straightened out with that and make sure that they're comfortable. So whenever you're checking the resident that is bedfast, you're also going to want to check them for incontinence. So a resident that is incontinent or has not been able to hold their urine or their poop, then they will have to have bed linens checked frequently, again, around every 2 hours. Never, never, never allow a resident to lie in soiled bedding. So if you know a resident has had an incontinence episode, take care of it right away. Do not allow that resident to lie in soiled bedding. If you are working with another CNA and you need help getting that resident changed and the other CNA is not available, go to your med aid. If the med aid is not available, go to your nurse. Keep trying until you get somebody that will be able to come help you. So don't allow that resident to lie in soiled bedding. Another thing that's really good whenever you're doing that check or the incontinence checks is you can do a skin check. Great time to do a skin check. So check your resident's skin when repositioning. See if there's any red spots, any sores forming, any skin tears, any real bad dryness. So you can always check the resident's skin while you're changing linens or after they're incontinent. Another great place to check the resident's skin is during a shower or bath. So they're completely available for you to check their skin. And we will practice at Skills Lab how to make a bed. So you will learn how to make those nice beds with the hospital corners that everybody loves. So you will learn how to do that in our Skills Lab. So the different ways that you'll learn how to make a bed, you're going to learn how to make an unoccupied bed. This is when the resident is able to leave the bed while it's made. So you may use a bedspread or a top sheet that can cover the pillow, or the pillow may be left out depending on the resident preference or the facility policy. We'll also teach you how to make an occupied bed. So this is where the resident remains in the bed while the linens are changed. This one sounds like kind of a difficult task, and sometimes it can be, but we'll teach you how to make it a lot easier on yourselves and your residents as well. So when we talk about making a bed, we need to use the proper bed linen names. So there is a flat sheet or a top sheet, a fitted sheet or bottom sheet, a draw or lift sheet, and this is a sheet that goes underneath the pad, underneath the resident's buttocks to help you reposition the resident, slide them up in bed, move them from side to side. That will help cut down on any friction or shearing that will happen. And then you also have any washable or disposable protective underpads. Now, depending on your facility, some places will buy the washable protective underpads, some places will buy the disposable. So just be aware of what your facility wants you to use. So make sure that you maintain your residents' comfort and safety when you're making the bed. So this means getting the wrinkles out, allowing for toe room. Now, your residents can get pressure ulcers on the tops of their toes. If you have the bed sheets too tight, then that can actually start putting pressure on their toes. Remember that our residents are not as flat as the mattress, and they're going to have some bumps and curves that will come up off of the mattress, so we need to accommodate for that. When you have made that nice, perfect hospital corner, all tucked in bed, and your resident goes to get in it, it might be uncomfortable for them with their toes if you just leave the sheets completely tucked in. So you might want to untuck the bed at the end of the sheet, or the end of the bed with the sheets, and allow a little bit of room for their toes. And ask the resident, is this comfortable? Do you have enough room for your toes? Do you feel like your toes can move or that they're not putting too much pressure? You may also see a metal ring that hooks underneath the mattress and goes over the top of the bed called bed cradle. Now this allows you to put the linens over the top of that metal ring, and it'll still keep the resident's feet warm, but this will not put any pressure on the toes. So if you've got somebody that has issues with that, you may ask if there's some kind of pressure relieving device like that available at your facility. So you also want to make sure that your residents are safe during the bed making process. If they are in the bed when you're making the bed, you need to make sure that they're rolling towards you, not away from you. Because if they start to roll towards the edge of the bed too much, you're not going to be able to stop them if they're rolling away from you and there's not somebody on the other side to catch them. And this will also help them feel safe. That way they don't feel like they're going to fall off the edge of the bed as well. Now, infection control. This is very, very important when you're handling soiled linens. Now, I don't say soiled like someone has been incontinent in the linens every time. This is any linens that you're taking off that a resident has been in. You need to wear gloves when you're handling soiled linens. So when you are making a bed, whether it's occupied or unoccupied, when you take the old sheets off, you need to have a pair of gloves on. When you take those old sheets off, you also need to make sure to fold the sheets properly. So this means folding the sheets in on themselves. So you have the bottom sheet and the top sheet and maybe the bed pad and the draw sheet and in between. So then you take the end of the bottom sheet, fold it towards the middle. Take the top of the top sheet, fold it towards the middle. Take the sides of the top sheet, fold it towards the middle, and keep folding in towards the middle until you get a nice little package built up, kind of a nice square. And then you can dispose of the dirty linens. So make sure you still have your gloves on. Never, never, never hold linens to your body that are soiled. Never hold linens to your body anyway, because you may have something on your shirt that's going to get on the linens if they're clean, but then also if the linens are dirty, you're going to get the dirty linen on your shirt, and then you're going to carry it on and so forth. So make sure that you hold soiled linens away from your body, just like she's doing in the picture. Now, when you're done with those soiled linens, and they're all kind of in your nice little package, if you have a linen cart right outside the door, you can kind of poke out into the hall and put the linens in the linen cart. If you do not have a linen cart right outside the door, you need to put the linens in a trash bag and then take them down the hall. Do not carry linens that are soiled down the hall without a trash bag. This will get you in major trouble with your facility and with state surveyors when they come. And never, never, never put dirty linens on the floor. Because if you have all sorts of germs and nasty stuff on the linens and you put it on the floor before you go take it somewhere, and someone comes and steps where those nasty linens have been, now the germs are all over the bottom of their shoes and they're going to carry them all up throughout your facility. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. Last thing is you want to keep good body mechanics while making the bed. So get the bed to your proper height, whatever, however you need it. If you are, helping turn a resident, not leaning so far over the bed that you're hurting your back doing it. Just remember to put the bed back down to the care plan height or to the lowest height when you're finished. So this will help you have safe practices in making beds. So this concludes our PowerPoint presentation on meeting the residents' needs for the personal living space. If you have any questions, please contact your instructor, and we are more than happy to help you. And we hope you have a good day. Thanks.